No, I don't think so. I think you're. Good. You never told me. No, it says welcome to live chat, so we should be good to go. If you want to go back to the Zoom button and we're gonna. All right, so welcome everyone to our really, I hope, discussion more than just a presentation, although I'm going to give you some general information and then we can talk about your questions if you have any. But those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Picoto. I'm the town manager here in Waterville Valley, and I'm joined this evening by Dylan Tucker. He is our chief wastewater treatment facility operator and the head of our water and sewer department. Our purpose this evening is to have the first of what I hope is 3 or 4 informational meetings as we continue with our wastewater treatment plant project going into the 2023 town meeting. This project is probably going to be the largest project that our town ever undertakes as a municipality. Pretty big price tag for the project, but because of the size and the complexity of the project, we want to just provide some opportunities for people from the community to get some additional information and just get ready for the March 14th meeting. And I'll talk about the timeline and exactly how that goes together as part of what we do this evening. Next slide. This agenda is a list of what we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to go over a history of the plant, the design process that we have to follow under state regulations from the Department of Environmental Services. Talk a little bit about the schedule and the project financing. Then I'd like to show a little clip of our new website that we have. So we have a website that's dedicated just to this project that we're going to be using to provide information to folks, and then open it up to questions and answers that you folks might have. So next slide. So quickly on the history and why we are building a new plant. Our current plant, which is the red and white building across here from Town Hall, looks like a little ski chalet. It actually is our wastewater treatment plant. It was built in 1972-73 timeframe, and it was put into service in 1974. So we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of that plant. It was part of the Clean Water Act when it went into effect in the 70s and 80s. This plant was a direct result of the Clean Water Act. When the plant was built back in the 70s, it did represent the best technology that they had available at that time for treatment of wastewater and cleaning of water for the effluent. We have handouts over here, folks. It really is, when you break it down, a water treatment plant, a drinking water treatment plant. We have dual media filters, and we clean the wastewater that comes into the plant to a very high degree. Okay, and that's part of the whole process of the new plant. Is that we have very stringent requirements with our effluent, what is put into the Mad River out of the plant. But it was really the most up-to-date plant of its type. I think it's the only type of plant tertiary treatment, which means the water is treated 3 different ways before it's discharged. And it really is the only plant of its type in the state of New Hampshire. The town at the time received 95% of the cost of the new plant from either the federal government or the state government. So the town only paid 5% of the cost. So we're not in that situation right now. We're gonna pay a much larger share of the new plant than we did back in the 1970s for our current plant. Now, why are we undertaking this project? Why are we building a new plant? Back in April of this year, we received a new permit, a new discharge permit from the EPA, which changed the requirements for our effluent and the types of things that we treat the wastewater for, and some of the levels that we have to meet in that permit. Now, this new permit is good for 5 years, so it's good from April of this year through May of 2027, which is important to remember because we are anticipating as part of the new plant, not just this permit, right? Because you'll see on the timeline, it's going to take us the majority of this permit period to build the new plant. So we are building the new plant, looking at the possibilities of the next permit, which would be another 5-year permit, right? So that's important to remember as we are talking about the design criteria and things like that. We're looking out at least another 5 years beyond this permit. The new permit limits that we received that went into effect are really beyond the capabilities of our existing plant. As an example, we treat for ammonia, right? Right now, under the previous permit, we had to meet those ammonia limits 2 months out of the year. And they were in the summertime. And some of the treatment process that we use to meet those limits involve the use of chlorine. And so in the summer, that's not a big deal because you open the windows and there's a really strong odor of chlorine throughout the whole plant. But it was okay because the weather allowed us to do that. Under our new permit, we now must meet that same limit, but we now have to meet it 8 months out of the year instead of 2. And it includes the spring and the fall. And so the existing plant, we cannot use the treatment process that we have and meet those ammonia limits because it would be dangerous for our staff and very corrosive because we'd have to keep windows closed if the weather were cold or whatever. So again, this is just one example of how our current plant does not have the capability of meeting the permit limits. And it's not just as easy as putting in some extractor fans or whatever. It changes the whole way that we need to work the plant. So we're looking at new technology, new processes that allow us to get away from the chlorine type treatment and use different processes to meet the limits. And I mentioned the ammonia increases. In addition to that, we have increased phosphorus limits that we have to meet, and we have to remove different metals to different levels. In addition to that, we have monitoring requirements for, remind me what they are.
Nitrate,
and nitrites.
Yeah, and total paint on nitrogen.
Yeah. So what we're anticipating is that is a setup for the next 5-year permit where we won't just have to monitor, but we will have to meet new permit limits. So we are designing a plant now to meet any future nitrites and the things that we're monitoring for, because this is kind of the pattern that the EPA uses. They have you monitor for different levels of something so that they know if your plant can meet permit requirements. So we're just getting ready for it because we have those in the new current.
Essentially, they gather data on your dime. So
Right.
they have you do the testing, then they form the permit limits based off of loadings to the river based on the concentrations that you discharge.
And just another word on the permit, our permit is probably, we're not 100% sure, but we're relatively sure that we have the most stringent permit in the United States.
In a couple aspects, it's the strictest in the entire
Right.
country.
And the reason for that is there is nothing upstream of us, right? We are discharging into the Mad River, which is a totally pristine river. So we consequently are held to a very high standard so that we don't pollute the river. And then in some aspects, our permit is actually cleaner than the Mad River for some of the chemicals. Yes.
But does that mean that we're pristine, but the next person down the line can pollute it because they have lower limits?
Well,
There's
It-
nobody else on the Mad River is the issue.
yeah.
There's
You
nobody
discharge-
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the next plant would be on the Penny.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see, okay.
And it's a relatively small water body as well, right? So when you're comparing the flows in the Mad River with the flows even in the Penny, but a river like the Merrimack River or something like that, you know, you're talking orders of magnitude larger than the
Right.
Mad River.
Yeah,
So consequently, our permit is very strict because of where we're located and the whole situation that we find ourselves in. And we've been told anecdotally, not officially, but that today, if the plant didn't exist, we could not build the plant here in Waterville Valley, any plant. Okay, they would not permit it today. So now whether that's 100% true, I don't know, but that's really, it came from the EPA
Yeah.
and DES.
Just to
people.
clarify
Yeah, Tim.
that any plant that would discharge. into
Any
the
plant
river,
that would discharge into the Mad River would not be built today.
But not any plant.
What do you mean?
we could have something
You
else.
could have a different.
Oh, yeah, you could have a different treatment process, yes, but to discharge into the Mad River as we do.
Yeah.
And that's a great question, Tim, because we did look at alternatives, okay, such as groundwater discharge and groundwater discharge, where we take the effluent, we treat it to a level, and then we discharge it into the ground and let it settle out. That was a process that we investigated as we started the design process here, but that we would have to build most of what we're proposing to build right now to discharge into the river. And then we would have to build the discharge facilities. So there's no real cost savings to doing that. And because of the amount of land that it takes with our type of soils here in the valley, it would take a very large area. And it would limit us on future development. If there's additional building here in the community or whatever, where we would just need such a large area that we don't have it available. Right? The only area that we have available is the National Forest land. We could potentially get it permitted, but not in the amount of land that we would need. So that is something we did look at, yes.
When you said the EPA is gonna ask us to monitor and report to them the nitrates and things like that.
Mhm.
So there's no standards right now for nitrates, is that right?
We don't have to meet anything.
We don't have to meet any,
So there's a chance for the next permit,
Mhm.
there still won't be any.
That's-
Or
Yeah.
they'll just say whatever you're doing now is fine,
Correct.
not that it'll be stricter.
There's a chance that the consequent, the subsequent permit following this may not be stricter, but the permit that we were issued is already stricter than our previous permit that we had since 1974.
Yeah, but that's not the question. The question is going forward, do we have to work, how much do we have to worry about them getting stricter?
Oh, we always have to worry about them getting strict. The EPA told us in the meeting that we were issued our new permit that we should count on being issued nitrate limits in our discharge.
Limit
discharge
later.
They'll issue limits, but we don't know if it's gonna be worse than we anticipate our output's gonna be now.
Yeah, we don't know what those limits will be, but we are designing a plant that can meet limits.
Right now, we don't have any means of.
We don't have any
nitrifying
treatment,
or denitrifying.
right?
So that's part of the issue. We don't have any means to do, if they, so for example, if we continue down the road with our existing facility, or if we built something that doesn't have the means of denitrifying, we'd be looking at essentially, millions and millions of dollars that we have to add on to whatever facility we build. If we don't go down the road and be building something that can be nitrified. And as an example, I'm originally from Massachusetts. Everything following from Merrimack, the Merrimack River, which is essentially the parent, just after the Winnipesaukee River ties into it. Everything downstream of us, which is only roughly 40 miles, already has a nitrogen limit. So it's just slowly working its way further up to Merrimack watershed.
So it's another-
Well, we're looking at it, we're planning as if it's going to happen. So we're giving ourselves the capability in what we build to meet those limits if they come. Because we don't want to do an add-on that could potentially cost a lot more money than building it initially with the new plan.
With grants.
So, and right now we have grant money, which I'll talk about in a minute, that we want to make as much use of that as we possibly can.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah.
Those limits you're referring to, we know some level of limits that we've got to work toward at this point, then, right? Is that?
As far as the nitrates and nitrates, no, we're just being told to collect the data. We have not been given a target limit or anything.
The standard limits for nitrate is a total of 10 milligrams per liter. That's what's being issued from the EPA.
Yeah.
So
How far forward does the EPA give you visibility into how they're gonna change limits?
They didn't tell us anything. So what happened with the current plant? This 5-year permits are always issued in 5-year increments.
Right.
Okay. We got an initial, when I first got here, we had just gotten a permit, so that was 20 years ago. They never issued us another permit. They just extended that original permit. Okay, so they really have the option to just say, just keep doing what you're doing. We're just going to extend your permit. All right.
Okay.
Or they can come in at year 5 and say, here's a whole set of parameters. You need to meet these. And then they give you a grace period to meet them.
Of what?
Well, it depends on what the changes are, but in this case, they're giving us 5 years to build
Okay.
the new plant. But that's more of a negotiation. Hey, our current plant can do X, Y, and Z. It's going to take us 2 years to get to the new, and then they'll issue you with.
Yeah, so we're gonna build a new plant, but we don't have any visibility of what
No.
EPA is gonna dictate 10 years from now. We don't know what the lifespan of this new.
Well,
that's part of the why we're building the facility with the intent that we are, is to make sure that if we do have any additional stricter discharge limits, like for example, the big ticket items are phosphorus, nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia.
Yeah.
We can meet our phosphorus limit, we'll be able to meet our ammonia limit. The only thing that we couldn't meet, if we didn't go with the type of design we're looking at, would be our total nitrogen limit.
So what's your estimation on the lifespan of this?
we're building a 40-year plant minimum. That's our goal. And I'll talk about the design and how we're doing that type of thing in just a minute.
Yeah, I won't be
Okay.
here, I won't be here for the next meeting 40 years from now.
No, and I hope I'm not either. 70 years as a town, 60 years as a town manager, no. And in one place, no. Okay, so those monitoring limits, any other questions as it pertains to our new permit?
Yeah, if we look at,
pre-treatment options.
Yeah, part of the issue with the pre-treatment side of it is the strictest side of our permit is our total suspended solids. But there's nothing you can do pre-treatment wise that's gonna reduce those numbers. We have a 1 milligram per liter total suspended solids, which is literally 5 times stricter than the other strictest discharge limit in the entire country. The region standard, and this is part of the issue that we have with the EPA, is the region standard for New England through the EPA is a 5 milligram per liter. We're 5 times stricter than that, which we've asked for. Why?
We've asked for relief from that. We've asked DES, we've asked EPA, and it's been denied.
Yeah, one little town. Are there any other towns similar to us in the state of New Hampshire that are facing the same challenge we could partner with and have a larger voice to the EPA?
No, nobody has our limits.
The problem really
We've
is
got the strictest limits in the country.
in a few respects, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did have multiple meetings with DES. We pointed out to them what it was costing us, what it could potentially cost us to build. We asked the EPA in writing. We asked DES for support letters to that written request, and we have been denied all of those, and that's going all the way up to the assistant commissioner of DES.
They won't go back.
They just
Right,
will not, and
regulation.
that is another piece to this is there is federal law that's an anti-backsliding clause on all of these permits. Basically, once you have a permit limit, they will not lessen that limit. Okay, so that was a major ask for us to go back and say, can we go from 1 milligram TSS back to 5? There was no way that,
We're being
Given-
punished for being good.
well, we're good, and our guys do
Clarify,
well.
the reason that it's more difficult for us with a new facility to meet the 1 TSS is because we have to come up with a biological method to nitrify our ammonia. So in other words, right now, because we only have to meet our 1 milligram per liter of ammonia during the summertime, the rest of the year, we're essentially just a drinking water treatment plant where it's all filtration. So it's literally a drinking water treatment plant. When you go inside that building, it's all filtration just to get down to that 1 TSS. And that's what the whole plant was built based on.
So it's been a challenge to even find the options open to us to meet these permit limits, but we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, so let's go over quickly here. There's a written design process that DES makes every plant in the state go through. All right, they require you to have a vetted engineering firm do the work. So we did a selection process to select our engineer, who is Hoyle Tanner and Associates. So DES goes through that process with the town and says, yes, okay, Hoyle Tanner is qualified to do this work. You guys can get a contract with them to do the design work. Then they lay out 3 steps before final design: 30, 60, and 90% design phases. And they give you criteria that you have to meet at each one of those steps. We have completed up through and have been approved to the 60% design limit, and the engineers are working on the 90% plan right now. Where we are right now is we have gone through and analyzed all of the permit requirements and what we need to do to meet those. That's the 30% level. The 60% level, the engineers have gone out and they have come up with options, which they reviewed with DES and the Board of Selectmen, different options for plants that will meet your permit limits. During that time frame from 30 to 60 was when we looked at the alternatives like the groundwater discharge and that sort of thing, and kind of did some general comparisons on cost and expandability and those sorts of things. And so as a result of the 60% design phase, we have now arrived at a design that and selected a type of plant that we are moving forward to the 90% level. So at the 90% level, we're going to have a pretty detailed layout of how the plant's going to be settled. And we'll be ready to go into the final design phase, which is the actual preparation of the bidding and construction documents. The final design phase is actually going to take all of 2023 to do. So we're going to go from the 90% plan to a complete set of documents that we can use to do a public bid process. And that'll take all of 2023 and probably the first quarter of 2024. All of the plans, every step that we do, there's an office at DES that's reviewing everything that our engineer is doing. And they're making sure that they concur with what the recommendations coming down from the engineer are to the town. So the town of Waterville Valley isn't alone in this process. We have several engineers at the state level that are doing peer review of what our engineer is doing and all of that. So we can be relatively sure that all of the designs are going to work and all of the calculations have been checked. Then when we get to the construction phase, we're going to put it out to bid early in 2024. By September of 20, is there a, let me just see if I've got my timeline.
Next slide.
Here. Yes, next slide. So here's the schedule. So yeah, final design right after town meeting, June through August of 24. We will have a final set of plans approved. We'll do a competitive bid process, and we will select a contractor in September of 2024, and then we will go into construction. The construction right now, if we build the plant that's generally laid out here, we're looking at about a 2-year actual shovels in the ground construction period. We have a deadline from the EPA to have the new plant online and working by October 1, 2026. So that is a hard deadline that can only be changed by the EPA, and only if we give them some really good reasons. Okay, so EPA through the Department of Environmental Services is tracking where we are to make sure that we continue to move forward, because remember, they're giving us relief from our permit requirements in order to build the new plant. So they are tracking what we do. Yes.
Question.
Mhm.
So maybe I missed it, maybe you said it. What's the time from when we're projecting, we're going to put it online?
Yes.
Switch to put it online, and the drop dead date from the government. How much time at the end?
At the end, a day.
Yeah.
No, we're projecting sometime in September of 26 to have construction finished, and the deadline is October 1st. But if we're seeing that isn't going to work, then we would go back to EPA and say, okay, X, Y, and Z has happened, and we need another month, or we need another 6 months, whatever it is. I mean, because we don't know what the weather is going to be, and I mean, all kinds of things up here can affect construction season, right, Tim? Yeah, so, so, you know, those sorts of things, if we ran into a very cold spring and the ground didn't thaw and we couldn't start in something in 25 that we plan to do, we will keep EPA updated and we'll work with them on that drop dead. But the drop dead date of October 1 is our target date to be finished with construction. We're right up against it. There's no flexibility in this construction.
They're following right along.
They're following right along with
Right
us.
along.
DES will be doing regular inspections of the construction. We'll have resident engineers, we'll have a construction manager from the engineering firm. And we're gonna have regular update meetings with DES during the construction period. And the EPA will attend those as well. So we're gonna have a communication line to be able to modify that if we need to.
Is there any reason for the town to consider a court challenge to the EPA's ruling?
We asked about that. We did ask DES about that. Number one, because of the anti-backsliding rules, it's virtually never done. The court that you would go to do that is an EPA court. So you don't go to the Grafton County Superior Court, you go to an EPA court. So unless there's something really out of the ordinary, DES said there's nothing in our permit. And the thing that hurts us, hurts us in the legal challenge side is the fact that we already meet the one, right? July and August every year. So they know we can meet it. It's just now that they've expanded the time frame, we can't meet it with the current plant. And that's the problem.
And the
So-
federal law that says no backsliding.
And the federal law that says no
Unless you've been to that,
backsliding,
you have to-
that's right. So we can't claim that we can't meet it.
Who challenges EPA rulings? And
No
is
one.
it-
Honestly, I mean, yes, we could spend however much money challenging it. But we've been told you have virtually no. I mean, they can't definitively say 100% you're not gonna be successful, but they said it's really ridiculous for you to try to fight this.
One of the recent examples that's really been the only case that EPA has lost was a town that was similar to us, where they didn't have a new permit for 40 years, which is exactly the same thing that's happening to us. And it's a burden on the taxpayers. You know, we're in the same boat as all. We don't want to have to build this thing. It's ridiculous that we have to build it, considering the effluent quality that we already discharged to that river. That was the only court case that I'm aware of. I'm not saying it's the only one in history, but that I'm aware of that the EPA actually conceded and said, "You're right. This is us prolonging the permit issuance period is what caused the burden to the taxpayers." And that is actually why our permit was renewed. And that's why, so essentially what they did was,
Protected themselves.
Yes.
what they did was, because it's been so long that they've issued permits to places like us, and essentially we just fly under the radar.
Yeah, we're just a small
We're the
plant,
only
there's
plant on the river.
not a lot, and we meet permit all the time,
We've never
we
had-
don't have
We've never had
violations.
non-compliance.
Right.
So that's what happened, is they looked at us and said, well, these people are never violating, never polluting the river. Why are we gonna bring the hammer down on them? Until they lost that court case about
Yeah.
how long it takes for them to reissue. So what they did was, you can, if you look, it's public, the NIPD's permit for New Hampshire, it's right on the EPA site. You can see, as soon as that happened, all of these towns, us, Ashland, Lincoln, Woodstock, all
New permits.
all new permits, up and down the entire state. And I'm just talking local. Plymouth got one, that was last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not just us that's in this boat. The problem is, because our permit's so strict, that's where it's not such an easy task to meet, so.
So Did we answer your question? I mean, we have asked that question, Tim. We asked it all the way up the chain to DES.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
did
we-
you ask it outside of that chain? That's
To
what my
who?
question is.
To
I don't
who?
know, that's what I'm asking. There's gotta be there has to be a other side to the EPA. There has to be some litigator or somebody who, picks up these types of cases as you just.
Well, no, we
No,
would
no,
get
no,
our
that's
own
not-
law firm and we would go to the EPA court. And we would make the case.
So did we seek out counsel?
No. No, once the DES said that they would not support us, they will not write any type of letter of support for us to do that. They warned us that it's wasted money to try this case. It just isn't, you're not going to succeed is what we were basically told.
The other, I mean, and I agree with you in this sense, and that definitely fighting it is the first instinct to do so. The problem with this as well is that not only did this DES tell us this, they adopted the same.
They adopted the standards.
So we have our state permit and we also have our federal permit. DES has adopted exactly what the EPA issued to us.
So we'd be fighting both the state and the feds. So it's just, in a risk analysis and what it would cost us to do that. It doesn't make any sense to spend all of that money and then be unsuccessful.
And we need a new plan.
And we
I need a
need,
new plan.
and our
That's the standards
existing
issue.
plant
Right.
is 50 years old, so we're gonna have to do something anyway. So we're building the new plant to meet the new permit and to meet the potential for a future permit, neither of which this plant will do. And
Well, we're trying to meet limits that are unattainable,
well, they are attainable. We
It's just
attain them.
costly,
but
They're just very costly.
very costly.
yeah,
And-
which makes them unattainable if we add this much tax spaces to our town. That makes them, that could potentially be unattainable.
Well, once we talk about numbers, yeah.
Well, it's,
I don't think.
but why would we add $500,000 in legal costs and then lose to the already huge number that we have?
I'm just asking if.
No,
there's
and
counsel
but
sought
they,
in that decision.
well, we asked the people who can tell us, is there a chance that we can succeed in getting a waiver from this? And we were told no.
No, they said.
Don't do it. Don't waste your time and effort because of the anti-backsliding and because you're already meeting and the state has adopted the same permit level as the EPA. Don't waste your time is basically what we were told.
We'd have a very hard time arguing that $2 on the, or $3 on the $1,000 on the tax rate is an undue burden, I think.
Yeah, if we were talking about a plant that doubled our tax rate or something along those lines, but that's not what we're looking at. It is a huge increase and I'm not minimizing it. It's a huge cost to do this project. But it doesn't rise to the level that I think gives us a good case to argue.
But the answer to the question, we did not see counsel.
We do not see counsel.
Okay.
But we sought counsel from the regulatory authorities, not an attorney. All right, so the plant that we're generally looking at right now is called a small batch reactor plant. I'm not going to go into the specifics about what it does from a technical standpoint. We have a page on our website that kind of walks you through that if you want to look at that, and we're certainly available to go through the process with you at another time, but basically we were looking at the footprint because we are very limited in the amount of land that we have available to build this new plant, because we have to keep all of the existing infrastructure in place while we build the new plant. So while we have a lot of land, we can't use any of it to build the new plant. So this whole facility here, so our existing plant is this building right here, right? And the lagoons, plus a bunch of piping underneath the ground associated with moving the water between the two, right? That's our existing treatment facility. We got a sludge holding lagoon up here, but this is the majority of the existing plant. All of that land is basically being replaced with this building and about half of this building. The rest is administrative and storage and that sort of thing. So you can see we're reducing the footprint of the plant very extensively with this type of treatment. Okay. But this is right now the general location. When we get to the final design phase, we will redo this plan and refine it and maybe move the building here and there and that sort of thing. But all of the treatment is going to go on. The other aspect to this new plant is right now, when the wastewater comes into this plant, it is pumped up to the lagoons and runs through the lagoons, then comes back down here for final treatment before it's put out into the river. The new plant, and this time process is
180 days.
about 180 days. Okay, so as the water gets pumped up here, it flows all the way through both of these lagoons and then comes back down. So 180 days to do that. The new plant, the water will come in
8 hours.
8 hours. It will be treated to the same level as the 180 days, and it will be discharged. So it is obviously much more condensed. And this new plant, so when because we have these very large lagoons, we can pump them down when we're looking at a peak period coming. And we don't have to operate the plant around the clock, right? The new plant, because it's such a short treatment period, will, once we turn it on, it will always be running 24/7. Okay, so that's a lot different in the operation of the plant as well. So
running it will be.
running it and operating cost is part of the financial analysis that the engineer will do going forward as well. But we do anticipate higher electricity costs. There are different chemicals involved in the new process. So we're putting those numbers together as well, looking at the operating cost of it over the 40-year period. So, yes,
What happens to your maintenance shed while this construction is going on?
this maintenance shed
Oh, is that
will
what that
continue
is?
to work.
Okay.
This is the DPW garage right here. This is what we're moving up to up here. This is our transfer station. So we're moving that up here in this temporary transfer station location and building the new transfer station.
So that's-
Because all of this will be lay down area for the construction of the plant.
So that's the land you're gonna take somehow, to put your new building?
Where, yes, this is, this parcel right here is privately owned and, we're working on acquiring it.
Two questions. What's
Yeah.
that green in front of the brown building?
So these are the tanks of the SVR plant, so they're large concrete. Open topped tanks where the biological process occurs. And then these are actually buildings, these are open top tanks.
Another question is, what's the access gonna be to the new transfer station?
Off of Tecumseh Road.
Gonna have to build a new road?
Yeah, we build a new access way into it.
Cause there's a brook there and everything.
Yeah,
That doesn't
there-
look like an easy way to get in there.
Well. Only because I knew it would come up.
You didn't even know I was gonna be there.
I didn't even know you were gonna be here, Ray, but I had a sneaking suspicion
But
you were
just in
gonna be,
case.
but just in case. So, a couple of things. First of all, our transfer station down here does not meet, state regulations for municipal solid waste handling. So we were gonna have to change that, from what we currently do. All right, it's supposed to be enclosed with a fence, it's supposed to be gated, it's supposed to be manned when it's open and that sort of thing. So we had to make those changes. And we knew that we needed this area down here to be open for construction. So between those two things, we selected the area up above where our current C and D can and our metal pile and that sort of thing, the brush pile. That location up there will be the location of the new transfer station. It'll be all inclusive. All these dumpsters and what happens up there will be in this new. So we have an access, this is Tecumseh Road here. And we have an access drive that comes in. It'll have a gate somewhere in this location. This is drainage structures. And this, everything inside the gray line here will be paved. Okay, and that'll help us with maintenance and moving the dumpsters around, plowing and that sort of thing. And there'll be a traffic pattern that'll come in. We have an attendant building over here because anytime the gate is up, we'll have to have a person manning it. There will be limited hours. It won't be open 24/7 anymore the way it is right now. Actually, regulations at the state level, you can only operate a transfer station between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So, you know, that's one of the things that will be a big change for us, but we have a planned traffic pattern. This area down here, because all of this is pavement, we've planned for a retention pond for the runoff. That's in this area, and then that will provide treatment for that water, and then it'll be discharged into the existing stream that's already over there. So here's the access off of Tecumseh, right?
Where's Garage Way?
Garage Way is just up off the map up here.
Cause there's access from Garage Way.
Yeah, no, we can't, the other thing that we're doing here is a lot line adjustment with Valley Run Property Management. And we'll have a shared access and they'll discontinue their current small access. So it'll be better for them. I've gone over it with Will, and this will be his driveway now
Oh, okay.
into his site. So taking care of a couple of, there's already his driveway is on town land and there were mix-ups in the boundary line, so we're correcting some of those things. What?
No, we're just.
Oh, okay. Typical water loss, yeah. Put a driveway, don't worry about it. Yeah, so we're fixing those things at the same time.
Thank you.
All right, so that's what the new transfer station will be, and we'll have updated plans. This plan right now, as a 75% solution, has been approved by the state. And we're currently in the final design work for that. The good thing about this is all of the site work that's involved with this new transfer station is all part of the wastewater treatment plant project.
So we
And it
get-
is subject to the same reimbursements that we're getting with the treatment plant. So we're getting 35% of the cost of that transfer station paid for by the wastewater treatment plant project.
trying to put as many things as they can. in there.
Yeah,
When do you think you'll start construction on that?
we are under an administrative order by DES to have that built and in operation by 1 December of next year. So it'll be built this summer and we gotta be operating. So that's the general layout of the plant right now. Again, that's at the 60% phase. We should have the 90%, we will have the 90% design finished before town meeting, so we'll update this picture for that presentation. Now, let's talk about the fun stuff, which is the financing. So, yes,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The plan for the transfer station, that's gonna be our permanent solution?
no, it is, well, we don't know beyond, until we get the plant built and get the area where the lagoons are right now remediated. You know, we have to clean up those lagoons as part of our new plant project, right? We won't finalize the location of the transfer station until we get the lagoons cleaned up. And then we look at the whole site and decide what to do with it. There's a lot of land that's gonna be opened up once those lagoons are gone.
Right.
So
Are you gonna look for town input?
we are,
Okay.
but until we get a contractor in, actually start construction, we're not gonna go there yet. All right, so what about the money? So town meeting 2021 authorized $5 million in financing towards the project. What we did was, we not only have the cost of the new plant project, we also have to keep the existing plant running while we build the new plant, right? And we have had several things come up, and major end items that are breaking. And some of that equipment that's in that building is original to the plant, so it's 50 years old. So we took 1 million of the 5 million, based on a report that our engineers gave us highlighting some major deficiencies that they identified. And actually their number was about 1.5 million, but we took 1 million of that. And of the 5 million bond authorization, and we have secured a bond for that. That is for current operations. That's 100% funded by the town to keep the current plant operating. In addition to that, we applied to the state clean water state revolving fund, the CWSRF, for the other 4 million of that authorization. And we have been approved for that $4 million, and we have closed on that agreement with the state of New Hampshire. Now, the Clean Water SRF is a program where municipalities have an agreement with the state to build a utility, water, sewer, whatever, and the state provides reimbursements as you go. So we are incurring engineer design costs right now. We take those costs and we apply to the state of New Hampshire, and they reimburse us for those expenses, okay? as we do that, it's like a construction loan that you take as you use it. And we will be charged 1% on that money between the time we borrow it and the time that we close when the project is completely finished. Okay? And so we have this, it's kind of right now like a line of credit that we can use as we need it. But they are only for project related costs. So the engineering and anything having to do with the new plant. Okay. That's only part of the total cost. The rest of the money for the project will be part of the bond request that we do this coming March. Now, right now, we don't have the final budget estimate, but we're looking somewhere around 40 million, 40 to 42 million. Okay, total. And so the authorization ask is going to be somewhere around 35 to 37 million, depending on what this 90% design comes in at. Now, on the 4 million that we already have closed, there are two grants that are part of that. We have qualified for a 20% upfront forgiveness. Okay, so they're going to take 800,000 of the 4 million, and they're going to say it goes away. All right, so we're down to 3.2 million. We then will have a 20-year repayment on that 3.2 million. And each year, when it comes time to write that check, they will forgive 15% of that payment. Okay, so the net effect is 35% of the 4 million will be grant money. Okay, now, if we use some of that 4 million to build the new transfer station, it's a qualified part of that will be the 35% will be forgiven on that cost, right? Now, we cannot apply to the state revolving fund until we have an authorization from town meeting to borrow money for the project. So that's why when we get the authorization in March, we're going to apply for the SRF loan forgiveness on the rest of the money. Now, whether we do that as a lump sum or whether we break that down because we know we're going to use it over a 5-year period, we haven't just, made all of those decisions yet. But we are looking at the best way to keep that loan forgiveness and grant money amount as high as possible. The problem is we're competing against everybody else in the state for that money that has to build their plants. And we have a higher than the state average median household income, slightly, but it is higher than the MHI for the state. And our water and sewer rates are the lowest in the state of New Hampshire. So we're kind of penalized for those two facts. So right now, we don't know if we're going to be able to maintain the 35% or what the exact reimbursement or grant amount is going to be on the balance of the monies. But DES has been very good. The staff is working with us, and they're going to keep us as competitive as they can. Obviously, we're going to have to look for economic development monies, we're gonna have to look for other grant opportunities. Our community does not qualify for community development block grant funds. We will need to talk to our legislative delegation. And we're gonna need to find additional monies. We have been successful in small increments. The ARPA money, the federal money as a result of the pandemic and all of that, we got small amounts of money there. But again, we're a very small community. A lot of that is population based, so only having 500 or 600 people here hurts us. Because it's not like a city of 15, 20, 30,000 people or whatever. So we're relatively small. So we will work through the entire project to try to identify places to get additional grant funding. And try to minimize the tax rate impacts. So in the bottom line is it's going to be a big amount that we're going to have to finance, not like it was the first plant we built. For sure.
And when do you think we'll start making payments? Is this 2028 correct?
Probably 2027 will be 2027, 2028. Again, it will depend on when we close the actual loan, when the construction is finished, and because we will have site work that will probably go on for at least one more construction period after the plant is running. I would anticipate that, the cleanup around the site and everything, and all that work has to be completed before we close out the loan. My goal would be to minimize the amount of time we're carrying that construction loan at 1%. So that's just something.
I truly don't understand tax rates and things like that.
Yeah.
Bear with me.
Mhm.
Let's call it $40 million for
Yeah.
a 40-year project.
Mhm.
So it's $1 million a year.
Mhm.
How many,
Well, plus interest.
Well, plus interest, but yeah,
it's not gonna be 40 either.
no, it won't. It'll be
So $1
20,
million
25.
a year. How many dwelling units are there in the town that pay the sewer and those kind of fees, water and sewer?
We have about 1,500 to 1,600 user properties.
And they're all paying,
They're all paying water and sewer, but most of this will be tax rate. It will not be water and sewer rate.
Do you have an
it's an addition
estimate?
to water and sewer.
No, I mean, we've done some really preliminary, and we're looking at $2.50
On
per
the
thousand
as the impact.
as an impact. That's after
Tax
the
rate.
grant. That's if we can maintain the 35% level.
Yep.
And maybe secure a couple of other smaller grants, like 3 or 4 million of additional grant funding of around $2.50. Which it is a lot of taxes. It's about 20 to 25% on our current taxes. Over that 20 to 25 year period. Again, we'll try to negotiate the longest term that we can. The problem, obviously, we're all seeing it everywhere, is interest rates are on the rise, and we used to be able to borrow money. I mean, we've had bond issues in the last 5 years that were 1.5%. And now,
Rates 2 days ago.
now they're looking, the bond bank just did a closing on a large nursing home for one of the counties in the state, and it was 4.5%. So there's a big change going on right now in the lending. Yes,
The 2.53 rough calculation, was
Yeah.
that based on current assessment?
current assessment, that's based on the 495,000. Now, that does not take into account all the new construction going on. So it'll be something less than that, but I can only use what we know right now.
Current assessments at what?
Right now, 495
Sorry,
million,
the taxes, 10 something.
$10.60,
Okay, so 30%.
around 30%. Yeah. And again, the reason that I said that 25% is because we have new construction that we know that is going to be occupied, that's going to take effect in 2023. So there's some number that's going to, and we're looking at trying to estimate what that number will be for town meetings so that we can tell you. But, there could be 20 million in new value or even more. But we'll have that number by town meeting. Well, no, you're absolutely right. We're trying to, absolutely, we need to maximize the new construction, right? Because that's gonna help us, it's gonna lower the overall rate for everybody. Yeah.
So you have a choice, don't you, of whether you get it funded via taxes or via the water bill? And doesn't the water bill seem more fair because it's based on usage?
So, yes, and so what the selectmen we're gonna have a public hearing actually in January. We're looking at increasing the water and sewer rates,
Okay.
okay? The
that
problem
is
is
based
we're a
on
one town where everybody is covered by water.
Yeah.
And 95% of the properties in town are covered by sewer. So basically, you're taking the money out of the tax pocket and you're putting it in the water sewer
Yeah.
pocket, right? So
it is
if
equal.
there
I just
were,
kept thinking that one is
Right.
based on usage and one isn't, and so that's why it'd be different, but.
right,
I think the idea is that in shifting the cost, other than helping to increase the cost and to help us with grants and whatnot of water and sewer. That really, we're trying to get as close as possible to an yearly operating cost.
Yeah.
yeah,
Trying to have the user fees cover operating costs as much as
Yeah,
as
'cause that's
possible.
also gonna
But-
go up,
But this is a $40 million construction
right?
Yeah.
project.
But that's a good point. In addition to this, the taxpayers are also be paying a higher fee for the operation.
a higher cost
The cost for the higher.
Later on, yeah.
later on. Yeah, and,
A double
and,
whammy.
but remember,
Yeah.
the other reason why we would want to move to the water and sewer fees are because that's one of the evaluation criteria for the state assistance. So
The higher
when
they
I
are,
first, right, when I first got here,
the greater
okay,
chances we.
when I first arrived in town, the thought was keep everything under the tax rate, okay? Because you could deduct your tax bill from your federal tax costs, right?
Mhm.
Now that that's gone away, right?
Right.
It's not as bad to pay the water and sewer bills higher. And if the same people are paying relatively the same thing, right? Comparatively, property to property,
Mhm.
then there's really no difference whether you pay it under the tax rate or whether you pay it under the water sewer, except we get more credit from the state by paying under the water sewer. So that's one of the things that we're analyzing is where is that balance so that we can get as much credit from the state by using the water and sewer rates.
And we don't,
Yeah.
We have a unique way of metering our water for
Right.
payment. Because of the nature of our town. It's a user fee, but you're not being charged
By
residential
use.
by use,
You're
by
being-
gallons.
Flat
or-
fee. Yeah.
It's a very confusing, unique
So
system.
the current rate is based on your potential for using water. So we measure how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, kitchen, water fixtures, and that sort of thing, and you're given, it's a point system. And so the more of those things you have, the higher your potential to use water and sewer facilities is, so the higher your water sewer bill is. Okay, so we're analyzing that whole system as well and trying to find, is
Renovate
there a
that,
better
yeah.
way to evaluate one unit against another?
Because we can't go to water
So-
usage.
We can't go to water
Right, you
usage,
can't go-
number one, not every property has a water meter, some of them
Right.
are grouped together in buildings. So it's impossible to set every one of the users to know their exact water use. Some of the units are just too small to even have a water meter. So, and then you have a unit or a situation like the Black Bear or the Golden Eagle, where
One
Yeah.
year.
1 meter for the whole building. So anyway, we're trying to look at other options because we don't want it to become particularly onerous for one type of property or whatever. So we're kind of looking at the percentages of how much to increase the water sewer and trying to make sure that we're not punishing
Punishing.
some category of property in town. So we're analyzing that as we go. Jeff,
The 35% forgiveness, does that apply to the whole 35 million or?
no,
what?
just to the 4 million right now.
All right, and how much of the 4 million has been drawn down? at
None.
this point? None.
We haven't used any of it yet.
Okay.
We
Well,
are
what
anticipating.
about the design? I thought you spent money.
Well,
on the
we
design.
we've been taking it out of cash,
Oh, okay,
out of the cash flow.
but it
but
is
we
still
can-
spent.
It is spent,
Yeah.
but we have not submitted the reimbursement, mainly because I don't want to incur that 1%
Ah, yeah.
interest until we absolutely have
Yeah,
to.
good point.
We are
and-
anticipating those, yeah.
We are anticipating that during 23, we will be dipping in to the 4 million. The final design costs are, the engineering really goes up because they're preparing all the plans and everything else, so,
Are commercial and residential real estate rates the same?
yes.
And
One
water-
tax rate.
water rates?
Water and sewer rates, no, the commercials are based on usage. The residentials are not.
Have you looked into what the value of the bonds are if we just decided to sell them once they're decommissioned?
No, we have not looked at that yet. I mean, we're not that far into it.
But it's not off the table?
I don't, there's nothing, right, yeah, we're not even at the table yet.
Yeah.
So nothing's off.
How many acres is that?
Quite a few, I think it's almost 7.
Around 7 acres between the two. But again, we've got alternative energy and all
Yeah.
kinds
There's all
of
kinds of-
interests that are gonna have to be discussed.
And remember, that land's gonna be next to
The treatment.
the
plant.
treatment plant.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you're not gonna build the best condos in town,
It's kind of landlocked. with the other
and it
side.
is landlocked.
Road wise.
So there's a host of, there's, Yeah.
The gardens will grow green.
you do not want to use those as a swimming.
Community garden though, that.
Community garden, there will be some serious growing capability. All right, so so the repayment schedule is, it really starts the day that we put the plant, well, the day that we say the project is finished. So that way, so a bond authorization does not mean that we spend every dollar of it either, right? I mean, if you got 40 million and we only end up spending 35 of it, we'll pay loans on the 35 million. Okay, so the authorization that we're asking for has a very substantial contingency in it. I believe the 15%. Right now, 15% contingency is included in that. And that's more than we normally carry. We usually carry anywhere from 7 to 10%. But with prices
EPA
doing what they are
prices.
doing lately, we have upped that. Because the last thing I want to do is come back in 24 and ask for more money after we get through this.
And not have the.
And not have-
Grant money
that's
as
right.
well.
Yeah.
That's the other side of this is. This go around, this application that we filed with CWSRF. is guaranteeing our spot with the grant money.
Right.
Next year, there may not be anything available from grant money, and that's what we're afraid of as well.
Yeah, so we don't want to do this $5 million at a time, because in the out years, there may not be anything available for us. So we need that's why the number is so big, because we want to get the balance authorized so that we can go to the state and get in line. Right now, we are the 16th project in the priority list of the state.
But we're the largest.
But we're also
grant
the
money.
largest project in the entire state. And so that actually hurts us a little bit, because they can't commit the entire $40 million number to us right now.
Where's that list?
It's right on.
The list is on the DES
Yeah,
website.
we should put that on the website.
Yeah, we'll put it on the website.
If you look up, probably 2022 CWSR priority list, it should come up, New Hampshire
Yeah.
DES.
And it's gotta be the wastewater,
Yeah. well,
CWS.
Yeah, CW.
clean water is.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. So, because there is a water one, Tim, as well. And now the 4 million, when we qualified for the 35%, we were the number 8 project on that priority list. That was in 2021.
We've been dropping.
Well, we dropped due to the size of the project. And we don't know exactly what the percentage will be.
Right.
But we can't make the final application until we have the authorization, so.
We need that.
Any other questions, comments? Just get out.
So, yeah, Mark, how much,
Can you advance that just one?
can you give us a range of grant money that you feel would be realistic? With your experience with the big projects we've done, or has it changed?
Well,
every
the
year?
problem that it changes every year, and the problem that we're having right now is the federal side. Because a lot of this money comes from the feds.
Yep.
And the SRF is how the state distributes it to communities. So DES has had a lot more money available over the past 3 years than they ever have had. Because of the ARPA money and all the COVID money and everything else, right? We don't know how the Fed funding is going to continue into the future. I mean, you see the news reports now of the fights that are starting over the federal budget, right? So we're guessing at this point, it's very difficult to tell. And the minimum that I'm hoping for would be the 35%. If we can continue the 35% number through the whole project, I would see that as a huge win, given our median household income and our water sewer rates. I think that would be because the first time we applied back in 2020, we qualified for a 2%. That was it. That was all they were going to give us.
Because there was no.
Because there was no
Nothing.
COVID money, there was no ARPA money. And we qualified for 2%. So we're just hoping that we can carry the 35 through.
What do we get for grant money for the well project that's been going on?
None.
Get anything.
0.
That
MHI
was
too
federally
high.
mandated, right? That's a big reason why we did that.
No. In order to bring well 3 back online, we had to treat it differently. And so the project that we did was to get well 3 under a treatment regime that the state would recognize so that we could bring it back online. And while we were at it, we addressed only having one crossing of the river to get the water from the west side of the river to the east side of the river. Remember, we put in a second crossing.
Yep.
So those two things, those were driven by us, not by feds in any way. And they were recommendations that DES had made to us. Hey, you guys, you know, you only have one crossing here, and if that breaks, how do you get the water to your users? So,
Whoops.
yeah, so. And Tropical Storm Irene had a little bit to do with that and. So our new website, www.watervillevalley.wwtf.com. Here's what- .com. Okay, we'll bring you to this homepage. And I'm not gonna go through everything, but a lot of what I talked about tonight is on here. Yeah, I know.
No
Believe
comment.
me, no comments, please.
WWTF.
But scroll down. No, the other way, sorry, to the top.
That's the top.
Yeah, to the top, yeah. So you've got home history, project info, click on project info, there's a drop down menu. No,
That's
well,
just-
there's history.
Yeah, it won't let me scroll over. The project.
Yeah, there you
also
go.
Drop down.
So here's the drop down. You've got project considerations. We'll keep updating the funding page. The timeline page is a lot of the information I covered tonight. And just general facility information on the existing plan. But I wanted to show you the facts here, the frequently asked questions. So if you click on that, is it allowing you? There you go. So scroll down. So we'll keep a running list of questions that we've been asked. And what you're gonna be able to do is click on these individual questions and it'll take you to an answer. And then keep going down, Dylan, if you would, please. If you don't see your question, if you type one in, we're gonna have a dedicated email account for the wastewater treatment plant all by itself. And we'll get answers up on the website. And we'll keep adding to that list. But this is going to have links off of our regular town website to this site. And we'll be promoting it through social media and all of that sort of thing. Just to use it as communications. And then our other communication tool is gonna be little meetings like this, and if condo associations want me to come in and bore them to death, I'll do it.
Yeah.
We just want you guys to have as much information as you can before we get to town
And
meeting.
encourage your friends to come to these so that you're not
Yep.
all asking every question in March.
Yeah, right, we want to get as much information out as we can prior to
March meeting.
the March meeting. Yeah, Tim.
What happens if it fails?
We won't have to be able to.
Then-
toilets.
It can't.
Well, it really, it really can't, people can vote against it. If they do, then we won't be able to apply for any additional funding. And we would have to keep coming back to town meetings to request the funding.
And our friend, that would fail.
well,
The
Yeah,
other side of it is the compliance schedule. That's
Yeah.
right. The fining is really where they get you. That's what forces your hands. And that's the tactic that they use. $45,000 a day fine for non-compliance. Which is ridiculous, but that's how they rule an iron fist.
yeah, certainly it's up to the voters. We're gonna be looking for a 60% majority. That's what it's gonna take to pass the warrant article. If it fails, we'll have to talk about it with the select board, how they wanna move forward, because quite frankly, we talked about the timeline. There's not a lot of flexibility. There's no flexibility in the timeline, so we're gonna have to continue to do the design work and use up that $4 million. And I just don't, at this point, given that timeline, I don't see us having a whole lot of options at this point, but we can certainly talk about that if people wanna vote against it. I would
Yeah.
hope not, but we'll. But bottom line is we can't spend any more than the $5 million that's already been authorized. Without another authorization of some kind.
We have an AOC with the state and EPA's permit.
Yeah.
With fines, so.
The AOC on the transfer station is $2,000 a month for not complying with that.
Oh, okay.
It's an administrative order to get this new transfer station built. So,
Thank you.
any other questions? Right.
I assume this new plant will be capable of handling the complete build out of Waterville Valley.
Yes.
What do you see in the next 5 years as being developed?
Well, in talking to Tyrell Corporation and talking to Tim and their 10-year plan up at the mountain, there could be substantial development. But this plant, this layout right here, we'll probably build the first 3 tanks here. This tank here will be plumbed, all the piping will be put in, but we probably will not build the last SDR tank, but the expandability will be there. And we're building the plant to max build out. And our permit right now is the same discharge amount of 550,000 gallons a day peak that we can put out.
And we will be responsible for the ski resort.
Yes.
It's our responsibility.
There is a line, a sewer line that goes up to the base lodge that is part of this project and the funding. The $37 million number, 35, whatever it is. That includes replacement of that line because we can't put it in its current configuration into this new plant. So we have to replace that entire line. Going
Right,
there.
your answer to the question is we increase by 30%.
Yeah.
Just increase by 30%, then it's a wash, right?
Right, get 30% additional funding and we're back to 1060. So that's only what, another $120 million in valuation. So let's add it and we're good. I'm all for it. Bring it to the planning board because I want that tax rate to be 1060 again. You know? Yeah. Well, it is recorded, but that is an answer, right, Tim? I mean, that is an answer. So we'll work for it. Thank you for your attention and hope you learned some stuff and I'll let you know when in January we're gonna update you.